This is Radio Now 95.3 FM. Come for the news, stay for informed conversations.
We bring you the story within the story, and that's what makes us tick. We are Radio Now 95.3 FM Lagos, and we go beyond the news.
This is Now Breakfast.
Still on the conversations this morning on Radio Now 95.3 FM Lagos, the former Vice President of the People's Democratic Party and a presidential candidate in last year's elections, Atiku Abubakar, has called for a constitutional review that will empower traditional rulers. Mr. Atiku believes that this recognition will prevent them from being subject to the whims of state governors. Our guest on this conversation is a professor of political science at the University of Abuja, Professor Yusuf Ali Zoaka. Professor Zoaka, good morning, and thank you for joining us on the conversation.
Good morning, thank you.
To jump right into it, what do you make of the comments of former presidential candidate of the PDP, Mr. Atiku Abubakar, regarding the constitutional review that will recognize traditional rulers?
Well, for me, like I've said in the past, I think it is high time that the Constitution actually recognizes and give the traditional rulers some role to play at that level of governance, because the traditional authorities have some very clear connection with the people that are living at the grassroots. Because you will find in the northern part of Nigeria, for instance, when you have an emir, the emir will usually have a district head. Under the district head, you have some village heads. Under the village, you have ward heads. So their authority tends to flow right to where the people actually live. And so you can easily use them, for information gathering, and that will help to, stem any form of insecurity, particularly like what we're facing today, for it to be nipped, at the bud. So I think it is essential that, the traditional rulers be given a role to play.
Professor, under the current system, there is some sort of recognition for traditional rulers. We have them classified as first-class traditional rulers and so on and so forth. What's really wrong with the current system? And I ask this because we have seen quite a number of conversations around traditional rulers. We're still in the middle of the Emirate tussle in Kano. There were unconfirmed conversations around the Sultan of Sokoto as well. What is wrong with the current system that we have?
You see, the current system that we have has completely, removed them from playing any form of role outside just the maintenance and projection of the culture of the people. So practically, you see that the traditional rulers have lost, their relevance, in society, because the only thing they are allowed, to do is to project the culture of the people and to advise the political office holders. I know usually if you are just advising the political office holders, they may not even take your advice, from what is happening. And that's why you find that there's all forms of political interference, in the activities of the traditional institutions, because like what has happened in Kano, for instance, where the former governor decided, because of their maybe lack of cordial relationship between him and the emir, he now made a law that actually dissected, the emirate into about 4 different emirates, and therefore that enabled him to remove, the emir that was, on seat, and to appoint, new, emirs. And I think that in itself has created a problem that we're now having, in Kano. And that's why when the new governor also came, he decided to also use the House of Assembly to make a law that also abrogated the so if you now have this kind of problem where you keep having a forth and back kind of thing with the traditional institutions, it's not going to really help us, because our culture, because we are coming from somewhere, and for some of these institutions, they need to be protected and they need to be insulated, from some of these political game that is going on. And so therefore, if you just assign them roles and try to define the roles that they can play clearly, then I think all this issue about, whether the traditional institutions were expecting, a civilian governor who just came in to spend 4 years or not, will completely be removed from, the scene. And won't be having such, arguments.
Well, Professor Zoaka, thank you very much for your time and expertise on this conversation. Professor Yusuf Ali Zoaka is a professor of political science at University of Abuja, and he joined us this morning to comment on a statement by the former presidential candidate or the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party in last year's general elections, Mr. Atiku Abubakar, that calls for a constitutional review, constitutional reform that will essentially recognize traditional rulers and protect them from the whims of the state governments. You're still on to your Beyond the News station, Radio Now 95.3 FM Lagos. Up next in a few moments is Brands Now.
This is Radio Now 95.3 FM. Come for the news, stay for informed conversations.